So welcome everybody. We have the lovely Dr. Petite with us today, but first we're gonna go ahead and go through some of our stuff that we do at the beginning. Karina, you can go ahead and screenshot or do whatever you gotta do for attendance. I wanna let you guys know next week Sam will not be doing, or Professor Whitmer will not be doing his talk because his computer's currently in the shop and he's a little nervous he's not going to get his computer back. So we moved him to the 29th because we don't have anybody that day. And then the week after that, we will be having Alan Kenny from the School of Theater. He's going to come talk to us, and I'm really excited about that conversation. And then after that, we're going to have just some other talks planned between us, maybe some more discussions. We're going to probably talk about what some of the speakers that have come talk to us, like have a brief discussion about what they've said, what we liked, what we want to see for next semester, because it's going to be pretty close to the end of the semester. Woo! We're more than halfway there. You guys are awesome, and you're almost halfway there, or over halfway there. Yes, you guys are awesome. You are making it through the school year, and we're so close to being done with this semester. So congratulations for making it this far. So that being said, if we have anyone else join us, I will go ahead and let them in. If you guys get any text messages, just put in the chat like, hey, this person's coming in or this person will be late. And we can go ahead and get started. So Dr. Petite, I'm going to go ahead and put the floor towards you. Is that how you say it?
Thank you. Give the floor to you. I don't, maybe. Okay. Hey everyone. So, and Chrissy, if you want to share it again, the handout, because if they weren't in already, that's the one thing I don't like about, not the one thing I don't like about Zoom. It's hard to complain because it's free. So, but okay. So, yeah. So I just want to start with a disclaimer that I am not a voice teacher. I have sung a lot and I've done coachings for my students, and I've had vocal pedagogy classes and all of that. But my field is music ed, choral conducting, and all of that. So that's why I was a little nervous when Chrissy asked me if I would present. I was like, really? Anyway, so but she helped me come up with a topic that I'm really excited about. So I wanted to start with my bio, and it's not because I think I'm super amazing, but I want to sort of give you some context. So I have 2 degrees in choral music education from Florida State, and my DMA is in choral conducting from Louisiana State. So my entire life I've lived in the South, and things are different, like in different regions. So I'm hoping to get to know how things are in the Midwest pretty soon. So, but so I didn't really take voice lessons until I was preparing for my audition for as an undergrad, because I sang in choirs all the time, and I thought that was the same thing, and it's not. So so I'm a super like choir nerd, but my professional singing experience is pretty varied. So I sang in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus for 10 years. That's an unpaid gig. They are very proud of the fact that the singers do it as an avocation, meaning for the love of it. Like, we're amateurs is what they call it, us, as in amour. And so it's a different dynamic. But with that group, even though I wasn't paid, I was sent to Berlin twice to sing with the Berlin Philharmonic, and all expenses paid. It's like the world's best orchestra. Doing the Brahms Requiem with the Berlin Philharmonic is like, there's just no words. So, and I went to Miami with them to sing at an ACDA conference, again, all expenses paid, and several trips to Carnegie Hall to sing. In fact, my child has already made his debut because we did the Britton Moore Requiem when I was like 8 months pregnant, and I was not missing that trip. So, but yeah, so I've had lots of great experiences from being a choral singer. And I sang with so that's about a 200 voice group. And then I also sang with the chamber chorus, which is a 40 to 60 voice group with that does like more intimate rep with the ASO, and that was 5 years, and that was unpaid. But then I sang with a group called Redshift Choir for 2 years, and that's a pro choir, and I got paid for that. Our roster was anywhere from 16 to 24 people. And with that group, I also was able to travel. We sang in Mobile, which was not, that was a few hours away, so that wasn't super exciting. But I also got to sing in Vancouver and at a conference there. And so again, all expenses paid. So singing in these groups, you get to network a lot. You get to meet conductors and other singers, and a lot, like for example, in Redshift, the pro choir that I was most recently in, a lot of the singers in that group were actually voice teachers at universities. And so, and they did it to supplement their income, and also to get opportunities, not just to supplement their income, but to put on their CV that they had, this solo in whatever piece, right? So, and the more you can add to your resume, the better. The more experiences you have working with different conductors and doing different rep, the more you're going to grow as a musician. And so, so I was not primarily a soloist with that group. I did have a couple of solos doing the Foch Mass for 16 Voices, which is it's got like this Queen of the Night sort of solo in it for soprano. So that was not my part, obviously, but so we brought in people for that part, soloists, people who that was their primary job, as they were solo singers, and because the people in the choir, like generally that was not our kind of thing. So so yeah, so lots of opportunities, and then the more you network, again, the more chances you have to grow in terms of getting a job somewhere. If you want to be a college voice teacher, if that's what you aspire to, you get to meet all kinds of people who that is what they do, and they may be on search committees, or they may say, oh, I sang with her when we did blah blah blah, and so it really, really helps, even if you are primarily a soloist and are not as much into the ensemble singing world. At the same time, so there's kind of two schools of thought on this. There are the people who, it's either be really, really good at one thing, like the Queen of the Night kind of people, or be good enough at lots of things. And so that way you can be versatile. And that's where I am on the spectrum. I'm pretty versatile. I'm good enough at lots of things that I can be in a lot of different kinds of groups. So, and I did a lot of, so my solo work was primarily like blues and acoustic rock, which is not, choral singing, but that was mine. That was my niche as a soloist. Also, and this is on the handout, I was in an Indian music group, so Hindustani, so Indian classical vocals, and then Indian fusion group. And so met lots of great people that way. So yeah, so that's my bio. So I say that just so you know that you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one type of group. So ASO does, the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra did lots of, the great masterworks like the Brahms Requiem and the Britten Requiem, and, all of that kind of stuff. But then I also did, Redshift is basically a postmodern choir where we do really wonky stuff, stuff that is sometimes almost painful to listen to. Like, you're supposed to be a quarter tone flat and in this one part to show the pain and the anguish of, so serious musicianship skills to be in that group, and bitonal stuff, and just, man. So lots of chances to be, doing versatile stuff. So that's a bit about me. Before I move on to not about me, does anybody have any questions? Because I find that I keep talking endlessly unless someone asks me a question. Okay. All right. So I wanted to talk to you about the benefits of this kind of work. So these pro choirs and ringer gigs are great ways, like I said, to supplement your income. and network. If you are planning on being a singer or any kind of musician really, as your job, you will never have enough money. You will always be looking for more things to piece together, right? It's just kind of how life is. So, well, I don't want to say never, but probably never. So like you're always going to be looking for more stuff, but we also don't do it for money. We do it because we want to perform. And some of the people that I sang with in Redshift, that's what they did. They quit their jobs and they just pieced together gig after gig after gig. And I sang with people who are in the Voces 8 like young artist program kind of thing. And so like really, really, really great singers that, live on ramen and stuff because this is what they've committed their life to, right? And they just go from gig to gig. But then there's others of us who need a little more stability in our lives. And so we have, stable jobs, and then we use it to kind of supplement. So even church choirs, depending on the demographic where you are, if there's a church choir that has the funds to have paid singers, either all the time or for certain projects, like they're going to do the St. Matthew Passion and they need an evangelist, I don't think, do we have any tenors here? That would be an example of a niche kind of thing. Like people who do the St. Matthew Passion and they're the evangelist, that's what they do. And there's so few people out there that those people are like always in demand. But yeah, so it could be like Christmas and Easter, you get lots of gigs then, or you have a steady church choir job. But again, it's a great way to supplement your income. So a lot of these they kind of fall into 3 different categories. There's like project-based groups, season-based groups, and like sub gigs. And some people live off of sub gigs. If I know someone in Boston who that's what she does. She is, she's got a couple of regular jobs, but she gets paid as a sub, and her flexibility. And since she's so good at what she does, she can pick and choose. So project-based. So the Redshift choir that I was in was mostly project-based. We had kind of a set roster, but depending on who was available, we'd bring in new singers for that. And some of our singers sang with The Crossing, with Donald Nally. And like I said, we had some Voces 8 people from the Young Artist Program that would come in for stuff. And they weren't on the regular roster, but we'd bring them in for certain projects. And then sometimes it's for the whole season. That's how, like in Atlanta, the Atlanta Opera Chorus was sort of, you were in for the season, right? And so, and that was a paid gig. So, and a lot of these people sang in lots of different groups too. They weren't just in the Atlanta Opera Chorus. They sang in, and that's an example of something that's paid, but they would sing in lots of different groups just to piece stuff together, either for an income or because they loved it and just had to sing all the time, like for their souls. So there's, and again, like I said, if you have a specialized skill, if you're one of those Queen of the Night people, word will get out and you'll get, because that's such a specialized skill. It's a great way to network that way. The other thing that's really great about this is you get to work with diverse ensembles. You get to do diverse rep. You get to work with diverse conductors and artistic staff. So you learn so much from like piecing together these gigs. Have any of you been in this world already? I was just kind of wondering that you do kind of. Chrissy, will you talk about that a bit?
So we do have a few choirs in this area that pay for college students to sing with them. I know obviously not right now because of Corona, but I did it it's actually the historical building now. The church no longer exists, but it was at the First Christian Church, which is like, it's near Court Street. And then there's like 2 or 3 more churches around here that also do that. But I've been in ensembles. I was in ensembles in high school where we hired some collegiate students, or We brought in other high school students so that we could like bring them together. But I mean, I've definitely seen these ringer type people that come in and I know, I know I'm all over the place. Dr. Stein is also paid to be in a choir in Columbus, and he is one of the ringers.
Okay. Yeah. And so bigger metro areas, like Columbus, I don't know how big Columbus is, but I know it's bigger than here, and it's a state capital. So like bigger metro areas, like people in Virginia like drive an hour and a half or two to go sing in DC choirs. And so because DC is like just crawling with choirs. And so the thing is, even if you, like I said, even if you're primarily not an ensemble singer, there is rep that we need on top, like we need like Mama Jamma soloists for, like this Foch Mass for 16 voices. It's such a virtuosic soprano part. I mean, it's like bouncing everywhere from like a high, like an E6 all the way down to C4. I mean, it is like within the span of like this. I mean, it's crazy. Not just the range, but how fast it goes up and then slams back down. Not most people can't do that. Like even if you can sing an E6, probably can't do it. Like most people can't do it like with agility and come all the way back down to C4 so fast. Like it's just crazy. So that's an instance of somebody like that. Probably most choirs don't have that person in their choir. But if you can also manage to sing in an ensemble setting, then they'll hire you for that. They don't want some diva just to walk in and like that's the only solo they sing, in this entire mass. They just sing that one movement and don't do anything. I mean, it's the mass for 16 voices. That 16th voice needs to be singing other things, right? When she's not being the diva. So, but if you don't have ensemble skills, you will not get that gig, or you won't get another gig because it'll come out that, yeah, this is a beautiful voice and, has all this flexibility and all of that, but you don't want this person in your choir because of, whatever XYZ, can't blend, can't control the vibrato, can't, learn their part on their own or whatever. So it's important to have all these other skills. So yeah, so requirements for this this kind of lifestyle is versatility. And I put on the handout, if you see it, I put vibrato. That is such a hot button issue, right? Oh my gosh, especially for like college settings. So there are people who have no control over the vibrato, right? It's as big as a house, whether they're singing Bach or Brahms or David Lang, and so for the majority of Western music history, that kind of vibrato is not used, right? It was used as for color, for expressivity and all of that, but it was not a constant like vacillation, like were you not even sure where the pitch is, right? Like the center of the pitch. So can you control it? Can you turn it on and turn it off? Can you have yours match with someone next to you? So rather than just vibrating with abandon all the time. So I'm not saying that we should sing with straight tone either. So please don't go tell your voice teacher that Dr. Petite said that you should only sing in straight tone, because that is not what I'm saying, because that's not great either, right? Like sometimes we need straight tone. If it's like these cluster chords, some postmodern thing, yeah, it needs to be straight. But otherwise, it's okay to have a little bit, right, of that. It should spin. The tone should spin. It should be alive. It should not be like, nails on a chalkboard, kind of like screechy straight, right? But and I'm also not saying that everybody's ready for that. So when you're in college, for the most part, people are just beginning to explore their instruments, right? That's not the time to like be just trying to take all the vibrato out, right? When you're singing in choir necessarily, you need to find out what your instrument is and all of that. But at some point, being able to have some kind of grasp on the vibrato is important, especially in an ensemble. right? Because if everybody's just vibrating at their own whatever, as big and loud and whatever as they want, then that does not work for blend, right? Or balance or any of those things. So that's why I put that in parentheses, okay? And at this point, you should do whatever your voice teacher is telling you, okay? But when you get an idea of who you are as a singer and who your voice is, then you can kind of work with that a little bit. Musicianship skills are so important, and I feel like, I mean, I've been around for a long time. Singers get coddled like they're not capable of reading music, and that drives me insane. Because it doesn't set you up for success, because in the real world, nobody's going to play your part for you. Like, that's not how you learn like music in a real like pro choir or any kind of setting, right? No one's going to play your part for you. You have to be able to learn it on your own. You need to know IPA, right? Because we sing in all these different languages. So you just have to keep those skills up. I can't even tell you how many times it's like the night before the concert and the director decides it's just not balancing you. I need you to now sing the second soprano part. Okay. It's the night before. You learn it, right? And you can't if you don't have your musicianship skills up. So you have to. You can't just be a beautiful voice and a nice person. You also have to be like a good musician. You just have to. Okay. So that's theory and oral skills and paying attention in music history. So you know what's stylistically appropriate when you're singing Brahms versus Bach versus, Schütz or whatever. Like, they're different. So, yeah, musicianship skills, and then professionalism. So if you have a problem showing up on time, showing up at all, being dependable to know your part, right? Or being like mentally there, right? Like, life is very hard and stressful. But if you can't handle the stress of the life and then you bring that into the ensemble, or even if you were the soloist, and like if you have a role, like if you're doing an opera and you have a role and people can't depend on you to be like there mentally because you're so stressed out. And I mean, everybody has a bad day, but if it gets out that you can't handle it, then you won't get gigs, right? So all of that goes into professionalism. And the other thing is, don't say anything bad about anyone ever, ever. Okay. It will get out there, and you'll be that person who, nobody trusts because you're going to gossip or you're going to be mean about something. So just be careful. Okay. If someone sets you up to say something awful about someone, you can just say, I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. And then just don't say it. Okay. Just don't be that person. Because it's not only is it not nice, but it will probably come back to bite you, right? So that's part of professionalism as well. Keep taking lessons and doing coachings, right? That's important too. So you're never finished learning. So check back in with a voice teacher, and especially as you grow older, your your instrument changes, right? So how you are when you're 18 is not how you are when you're 26, is not how you are when you're 31, right? So you want to check back in, even if you can't afford to do lessons every week, for your whole life, that's okay. But maybe do a coaching once or twice a year. Maybe go back into voice lessons for a year every 5 years, something like that. Okay. Check back in, and sometimes go study with a different teacher, right? Because you learn different things from different people. So you're never done learning, right? And then also keeping up your chops by having a regular ensemble gig. There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you're one of those ringers in a church choir, okay? It helps. You learn so much from those opportunities. Has anybody run into issues about like being in a group with like that, like where the night before it's like, oh my gosh, I have to learn a new part or something like that. Has anybody had that? Or somebody's sick and now you were the understudy, but like now for reals, you're not. You're like, that's you now. Has anybody had that?
And inquire.
Inquire?
I had like the sick thing happen, definitely. When there's like a small little group and then had to replace them real quick. And you just didn't know that you were gonna be that person until it happens. It's like, oh crap, now I gotta go. And it's mostly like right at the performance. So like the day before, the night before, and you're kind of like mentally settled, like, okay, I guess this may not happen.
Right. Well, and it's also really tricky when the conductor's like, "Hey, will you do this?" You can't really say no, right? I mean, maybe you should if it's not if you like if I keep saying Queen of the Night because it's so like really ridiculous. If somebody asked me to do that, it would be like, no, I don't, that's not my notes. Like those are not here." But yeah, so it's scary, isn't it? But did it work out well for you? Did you have a good experience?
It did. It did. I think it was a lot of adrenaline, but like, we practice a lot. It comes through. Like, it's the work before that really helped.
Yes. Oh, right. The work before. Definitely.
Like, I do have a question. Okay, when it comes to languages. Now, I'm from Chicago, so I've been in, which is really great for me when I was in my undergrad. I'm a grad student here at OU. In my undergrad, it was really great because I was able to be in different types of choir settings or so with different types of level people, However, I wonder what it's like to learn, perform in a different language. Because I've done things, but it's mostly like have been Latin or probably like Italian. So much that's kind of easier for me, but I never had like my my experience is like I never had a French piece or Czech or Russian. For one, I never had that without as a choir we're going over some stuff. Yeah. Is that like that in the like I'm thinking about my undergrad? That's the only time I did things outside of my language. Like, okay, so I'm trying. Like, sorry.
No, I get it. Like outside of French, Italian, German.
Right. Within languages outside, like outside gigs, I had like Italian, Latin. Yeah, but on my undergrad, that's the only time I had like kind of other languages like French, Russian, German. So I was like wondering how it is in the professional world. Do they run it with everybody to make sure everyone's pronouncing things right? Or
yeah, they give you the IPA and they expect you to. Well, okay, it depends, right? Like not everybody's the same way, but they give you the IPA. And they expect you to be able to figure it out. But at the same time, at the same time though, then they want to make sure that everybody's got the same idea of what kind of E that is and all of that. But they're not gonna like line it out for you. The other issue is like the higher up you get in terms of like academic sort of choirs, right? Like this Redshift thing that I was in, it was like super academic. We performed for the College Music Society, which that's a bunch of theory nerds, like that study like wavelengths and stuff. Like that's that kind of, oh my gosh, not kidding. And so I'm like, why are we performing here? Like, it was just kind of like, do these people listen to actual music or do they just talk about it theoretically? Like, it was just, I'm not kidding. Like, anyway, that kind of group that's like exists to do music, like really hard music that's like hard just for the sake of being hard, those kind of groups, which is like so great to do that sometimes. Yeah, they just expect you to be able to follow IPA. And not only that, but there is no such thing as Latin. It's like, are we doing French Latin? Or are we doing Italian Latin?
Definitely.
Are we doing
right?
So and like in this period in Germany, at this it wasn't like what we think of now as Austro-Germanic Latin. I mean, it's like sometimes it's intense, and I'm not an expert in IPA. Let's just put it that way. So I mean, I have to work hard. I'm like, wait, what does that sound again?
So they won't give you something like a sight singable thing that's with a different language, right? They'll give you like a moment with it. Like, do they like, all right, here's your new piece, like sight
Oh no,
singing with
they
words?
expect you to come in that you know it. There is no like, there's not sight reading in there. It's like I gave you your music 2 weeks ago. You should know it
Okay,
now.
so they do give it ahead of time.
Sometimes,
Okay,
yeah. Well, again, it depends on the group. Like in ASO, we learned it together, right? The Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, we learn it together. And
That's
so it's just different, you know, but they expect, like, we went over these 8 pages, though I'm not going over those anymore. You need to know them now, you know, and that's something I wish that we would hold our singers more accountable for anyway. You know, like, why do I have to reteach this? This is,
yeah.
you know, like, I taught it and you're an independent musician. Now you need to go practice it, you
Yeah.
know? And so, yeah, so that's, in this world, they expect that, right? They expect you to be an independent musician. And again, some places, depending on the group, they will teach it. In other places, it's, you know, you show up on Thursday and your concert's Saturday, and it's an hour and a half of music. That's how Redshift was. And so if you didn't already know it, oh, and we're talking like, and it's bitonal. That's, so I have a funny story about that. I was like, we did this is called the Constellation of Apollo. And it's one of these like super academic-y kind of works. And that's actually what we sang in Vancouver for the nerds. And sorry, you are recording this. For the that kind of musician, you know. And so I'm a theory nerd too. I love theory. So, but so I was practicing my part, and I was like, oh, I'm going to find my note, you know, from the alto twos. Except I didn't look at the key signature, and the alto twos were a half step lower than I was, because they had a different key signature. And I was like, and I kept coming in, and it was like, the woman in front of me was like, dude, that's never good. She was like trying to block me out. And I was like, what? Well, it's because they had a different key signature. I didn't even look at their key signature, because why would I? I looked at mine, but it was bitonal. So that was embarrassing. But so some of this stuff is really hard. But anyway, or you'll be 1 on a part or 2 on a part. And again, even if you're not planning on being a choral singer for a living, if you got paid to come and do the solo, they're not just going to pay you to come sing the solo. They expect you to sing all the rep, right? Like, because most places don't have enough money. I mean, unless you're Renee Fleming, right? Like, they don't have enough money to just pay you to come sing one little part. Like, you're going to sing the whole thing. So yeah, I mean, you have to be resourceful enough to find out the right answer. And then if it's super postmodern, please look at the key signature of other people's parts too, because that was my first time doing something that scary. So anyway, yeah, so IPA is good, is a good thing, right? So, and again, the higher up you get, the more, or if you do period stuff, like early music things, those people quite often want to do stuff that's like historically informed performance practice, right? And so your music history classes are important. They really are. As performers, you need to pay attention. It's not just for the history people, it's for you too, to be educated and well-rounded. And people expect you to be diverse now with your skills. I mean, again, unless you are like the queen of the night, they expect you to know how to do a lot of different stuff. Okay, be good enough at a lot of things. That's me. I'm not good enough at one thing to be a one kind of niche person.
Quick question. What are your recommendations of standard oratorials that we should have in our pocket just in case? Like, I know, like, I have like Messiah, but like, you know, what are, Messiah is definitely one, but like, you know, what are standard ones that you would recommend? Like, oh, everyone should learn this because these are a lot of bread and butter kind of oratorials.
I mean, St. John and St. Matthew Passion, depending on your voice part too, but are really good. It just sort of depends. Handel's really fun, right? So like, I've never been anywhere where they did a lot of Handel oratorios, you know, like Zal or whatever, but those are really fun. So so like those, you can't go wrong with like the like famous ones like that, like Zal. But, and again, it depends on where you are. Like if you're in Boston and there's all these early music things, or Chicago's such a great music town. Where did you go to school, by the way?
I went to school at North Park University.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
Chicago's just got like, there's so many schools, right? It's
Oh yeah.
so much great music there.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So if you're in a place like that, maybe they do a lot of early music things, or maybe they do a lot of super postmodern stuff, and it's like, I don't even know like what to tell you, right?
Yeah, I was just like thinking about like standard stuff. Not just, it doesn't have to just be oratorio, but just works. I know Mozart Requiem is another one that like commonly
Yeah.
done. So
Brahms, Fauré, depending on your voice part, and like if they want to use, you know, a child for the for the foray, you know, like sometimes people use that as the Piezu or whatever. So Christy, do you have a thought about that?
The Piezu from Fourier's Requiem is one of my favorite pieces, and I sang it for my audition into the School of Music when I was a senior in high school. And it would make me very sad if a kid did it, because that would not mean that would mean that I couldn't, and it makes me sad.
I know, I feel that way about that sometimes too.
It's also
So,
kind of, it's, I would say if a child is doing, I don't, like, are you saying like prepubescent boy kind of thing? That's crazy. That's kind of hard for them, wouldn't it be?
well, that doesn't mean people don't look for that sometimes. I know. Yeah. So, I mean, it just sort of depends, but yeah, those are the Brahms Requiem. Oh my God. That's just like, it doesn't get any better than that. It just doesn't.
special, since you said it's based upon voice type, I wanted to have general, but like if you can recommend some for mezzo, you know which ones are great for mezzo. I mean,
I think I'm going to defer to your voice teacher for that, because again, that is not my field. Like, I'm
okay.
never going to be asked to do, the Brahms Alto Rhapsody, or like, they're never going to ask me to do that. So like,
Oh, it depends. Okay.
like I just mean, that's not my world. Right. Like, I don't, so, yeah, that's not my world, but, yes.
So how important is it to like have a bunch of if you are wanting to be like one of the ringers or in like a top ensemble, how important is it to have other ensembles, and how many other ensembles under your belt before you audition for that? Or like how much do they look at your past experiences?
I think it depends on the group, but I think they care more about what you can do right now. So if you have a proven track record and you're up against someone who doesn't, they may go with you because you have a proven track record. But if you're the best person who showed up that day and they think that you're sane, then it's going to be you, right? So,
And then I have another question. So a lot of the people in this group, I feel a lot of us have like really big voices. I'm not saying like me in general, but that's like one, I don't want to say problem, because those big voices are gorgeous. But there's a lot of issues when it comes to ensembles, and it just being like something that they're just like, I'm not too scared to do it, but it's not something that I think I could ever do, because like,
yeah.
I've had either bad experiences in the past, or I can never find an ensemble that fits me. What would you say to those people?
You could just maybe wait until you get a little older and have a better grasp on your instrument also, because if you are training to be a soloist, right? Like that is your main goal right now. But I will say there is rep that is accessible, or you could be in a larger group, like maybe a 16 voice chamber choir is not the right thing for you, but you could be in a larger group, like a 40 or something like that. But again, to be versatile, because there's so few people that just make a living off of just being a soloist, right? Like, there's so few people. So being able to also do this ensemble work, even if you are primarily a soloist in one of these ensembles, again, for the most part, I mean, like, if you're doing, Carmina Burana or whatever, and you are the tenor soloist, nobody expects you to sing the tenor part probably for the rest of the for the rest of it, you know. But again, those things are so few and far between. It's expensive to put on Carmina, you know, for if for no other reason. So those so you may it's just good to be, like I said, it's good to be versatile, but and that's something you can talk about with your voice teacher also, because I don't want to just give a blanket statement, you know, not knowing each of you. But if it's possible for you to be able to rein it in sometimes. And I mean, I've sung with people with like amazing, like big voices that also can dial it back and listen. Some of the times when people have huge voices, they're not used to listening to other people, right? And so because they are louder or they have the solo or whatever, but if you can get your ear chops go, you know, up, then maybe you can. Like, and I don't think it's bad to be able to do both, right? So it really is, it's really, really important to be able to, if this is what you want to do, if you want to make a living off of singing, to just, the more chances that you have to do that, the better, right? And it's not to say that you're not going to make it and be a great soloist, but the chances of you making it and being a great soloist and not having to do other things like choral singing is kind of small, right? Like the choral singing aspect is there's just more opportunities, right? Because there's more people in a choir than being a soloist. So and one of the things to work your way up is sometimes doing local gigs, you are cheaper for the person that if they don't have to fly you somewhere, right? And so that could be, if you wanted to talk about waiting to audition for other things, right? Like it may be that if you want to do something far, far away, they may not know if they want to spend the money on flying you there in addition to, you know, paying you and everything if they've never worked with you and you have no track record. So that could be one reason, like to have some things on your resume. Someone may be more likely to take a chance on paying to fly you somewhere because it's more expensive, right, than some regional thing. So is your name Nana?
No, it's Nana.
Nana.
It's
Okay.
a lot of
Nana.
people, it's when you read it, you know, depending on
I'm just
the
not, yeah, I'm not sure. So I wanted to check. So yeah, Nana.
Yeah. So I have a question when it comes to I just lost it. I'm sorry, I just lost it. I was what you were like talking about too. Okay, come back. I'll have to come back. I was just like,
Okay.
I just had it and it just lost. I'm sorry. I'll have to.
Okay. Okay. Well, so like I said, I've spent my whole life in this. Oh, Chrissy?
Katie Lessick has a question.
Oh, Katie.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, Katie.
So my question is, I had this crazy idea, and it might be crazy, but in high school, I sang with the Cleveland Orchestra Chorus and a couple other groups in Cleveland where I'm from. And so I met some people in the early music Cleveland kind of
Yeah, like Choir Cleveland, is that?
Choir Cleveland, Apollo's Fire kind of deal people. And so I had this crazy idea. I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna email my people that I know, and I'm gonna ask them if I can just follow the choir around, or like, I don't know, make photocopies or something, because I just want to hang out with them or like hear them practice. Is that crazy? Is that totally inappropriate? Because that was an idea that I was having in my head for a while.
Well, I think because you're a student, they may think it was less crazy than if you were like 50 years old and asking to do that. But because you're a student and like you're trying to learn things, they may be more open to letting you do that. And sitting in on a rehearsal, you know, is pretty cool. You know, I'm hoping you were all able to sit in on rehearsals when you were auditioning places, right? Or a voice lesson or something like that, like to get kind of an idea of, you know, where you're going and who you'll be working with. So it's kind of cool to get the idea. And, you know, every group has a different culture is the other thing too, you know? So if it's a group that brings people like Redshift that brings people in from everywhere, that's not a really tight knit group, right? And I know it's nice to see people again. Like you didn't see them for 4 months and then you're all coming back together. So that's not a tight knit group, but then other things are, like if it's more like local. So it's just, that was based in Baton Rouge, and that is not a hub for choral music at all. But the director was fantastic. And so he's like, I live here. I'm going to fly people to come sing with me. And I'm like, when will I have that opportunity? Yes, here's a plane ticket. Come fly and sing with me. But yeah, so every group has a different, like I said, a different culture. And that culture was also, people went out and like partied and hung out at night, like because they were nobody was a local. Well, not nobody. Some of us were locals, and so they're like, hey, let's hang out in this new town. And like if we were always together, it wouldn't be that way. I never got to do that because I have a family and like I'm gone too much. So I'm like, they'd be like, we're going to such and such. And I'm like, great, I'll see you tomorrow at practice, like, so I didn't do any of the social things because I'm busy. Nana?
Okay, I remembered my question.
Okay, good.
My question was regards to balance of work and being a musician, especially in the beginning phases when you don't have a legit like steady job, or how does it, because you're in a much higher position now with your work and everything, but like how is it when so you're younger and like you have to like, all right, I'm going to be gone for such and such time. Like what kind of job, like how do you plan, or what kind of jobs, or I don't know, like.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So if you have, a lot of people have like, I think have jobs that aren't really meaningful to pay the bills. So that way they can do what they want and just be gone, and that's a phase in your life, maybe that's like early on. Right. Or you make sure you live in a place where you don't have to travel as much. Like you live in Boston, or you live in Chicago, or you live in the DC area, or you live right. Like, so that way you can just be there, because most of these things are not like rehearsing during the day. Right. A lot of these are like, or maybe it's like a Friday all day, Saturday kind of thing. It just sort of depends. Like I said, the one that I was in was project based. And so we had an intense, like people flew in on Wednesday morning, and we might do Wednesday night, Thursday night, lots of stuff on Friday, and then concert Saturday, Sunday, and so that's why I didn't understand how people went out. I'm like, isn't your voice tired? Like, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, so you can have sometimes, or if you have an academic job, right? Like you're a voice teacher at a college, they expect you to do stuff like that. Like, right? Like you're supposed to give recitals. You're supposed to go out. So it just sort of depends on your job. Or if you have a job that's more flexible, then you can do that. So some people, since most of our stuff is at night, right? So one of the soloists, so one in the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra chorus, Aretha Lockhart was just one of the darlings of Robert Shaw, and stayed in the group, continued. She was an elementary music teacher because she didn't want to have, well, I don't want to say because I never actually had this conversation with her, but I'm assuming part of that was because she didn't have like all of the taking her students to Allstate and like 18 concerts every semester with her students. It made it a lot more flexible for her. Again, I don't know. That's why that she did that. Again, I shouldn't say that because I never asked her. But a lot of times people will do stuff like that. Like they are not going to be a high school director because they need the time to go do things. And I will say that at one point I made a choice because I was gigging. I had a steady gig on Thursday nights and at a bar restaurant thing when I was doing my solo blues acoustic rock thing. And it came down to it after a certain point in my life when it was really hard for me to get up at 5:30 on Friday morning and go teach my students. And I felt like my teaching was suffering, and because I was just so burnt, like just burning my candle at both ends. By the time you finish up at 11:30, and by the time the bar manager pays you and you close this out, you pack up all your gear and then drive home, because in Atlanta everywhere is an hour away, so I would be getting home at like 1 a.m. and then getting up at 5:30 or earlier to teach. And I just, at one point I was like, I'm not getting paid enough and I'm not being appreciated enough. I either need one or the other. I either need them not to be drunk people and I want them to actually appreciate me, or I need to get paid more. Otherwise it's not worth it. So I quit doing that after a certain point. I was just tired, So, but that was for a long time. I did that, but that it was feeding who I was, because I don't want to not sing blues and rock and stuff. Like I want to be able to do that, but I also want to teach. But so I did that for a while, and then I made my peace with it, that I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like I'm too tired. And that was before I had a child. Like that's a whole other thing. So, but yeah, so you just sort of make decisions. And again, but depending on where you are in your life, I'm in the I need health insurance part of my life. Like, yes. So, I'm in the, yeah, I'm in the, like, I need to not be gone every single night, or else my husband's gonna like ask me why I don't want to be married, like I need to be home sometime, like I got to do it. Like, but when you're first starting out, oh my God, burn your candle at both ends if you can, like, and then pick for like your own mental health and physical health, because it's tiring. I mean, your body gets worn out. And I swear I've lost brain cells from sleep deprivation. Like I don't remember things that, I'm sure it's from being exhausted for so long. So at some point you have to pick and be like, I'm not healthy, right? Like I'm just not healthy. And your instrument is your body is your instrument. So, I mean, you can't lose sight of that. You have to sometimes pick, right? But when you're first starting out, I don't think you need to pick. I think you should just do as much as you can while being healthy, right? As much as you can. Because if you get sick and you're so run down, your body can't get better, right? And then you end up with pneumonia and you're really sad. So like, right? Like don't be Mozart, right? Like make choices and take care of yourself. But I don't know. I'm quoting the movie Amadeus. I know it's not historically accurate. But real fast, before we run out of time, do you all know about YAP Tracker, the Young Artist Program? Okay, so that's a way to find out about stuff. A lot of choral people don't post stuff on there. That's really more like the opera world and stuff. But sometimes also, and then there's Chorus America, which is a professional choir group. But like so many people are not on that. Like it's, so for finding gigs that pay, that may not be the best, but Chorus America may advertise there. And then, so like in word of mouth. The other thing is once you're ready to like break out of your like little regional area where you know people and you want to expand and people might pay to fly you in somewhere kind of thing, attend workshops and festivals. So Katie asking about sitting in on a rehearsal. A lot of groups will do, like, they get a grant and they need to do educational outreach for it, and so they'll do like a summer workshop for teachers or local people or whatever, because they have a grant that requires them to, right? That's a great way to sit in and see, do I like this conductor? Do I like these people that would be my colleagues? What is the culture of this group? So that's a great way. It's also a great way to network, even like you're like, I don't care what the culture is, I need money, right? Like, so you can at least like network and work your way in by doing some of these workshops and summer things, a lot of organizations will do something like that, or a young artist program like Voces 8 does something like that. So, but you have all asked, you, Nana and Katie and Chrissy, I've loved your questions. So does anybody else have any more questions?
Okay. I know I'm like talking a lot. I'm a person of many questions, so.
That's good. It makes me not talk as much if you ask a question.
I do have a question in regards to what I hear that some people, I was told if I wanted to have a solo career to be weary about doing so much choral work, or depending on what type of choral work. Like, so I was told like, okay, it's okay being a soloist if I, I mean, it's okay if I audition for like CSO, Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and then I can still be considered as a soloist, opposed to doing so many choral things, or else I might be like listed or labeled as a chorister opposed to a soloist. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to the audition. If you blow them out of the water, I don't see why it's an issue. And I don't know. So I was in the ASO forever. You could, after a while, you could like call out of certain concerts, right? Like, you didn't have to do the whole season. So CSO may be like that as well. I don't know. So like if there's an opera that you're in the opera chorus for or whatever, then you may call out for that. Like I said, I don't know. There is an issue with labeling. I mean, even in terms of teaching, like if you taught middle school forever and then you try to get a high school job, people think, oh, she can't do high school, which is so stupid. But like we get typecast, and so I get that. But so my answer to that is, well, then do solo work too. Don't just do, right? Like, don't like use the choral stuff as I'm working on my musicianship, I'm networking and all of that, but keep your eye on what your goal is. And if your goal is to be a solo singer, then do that, right? And use the choral stuff as extra. It won't hurt you to have that in your back pocket, that you're a good ensemble singer as well. But don't get yourself trapped in something and then miss out on an opportunity to do something like some solo work, right? Like that. If that's your goal, then you do that, right? We work at our profession and we play with other things, right? So yeah. The typecasting thing makes me mad. Like if someone comes in and like blows your socks off, then hire them. Like who cares, right? Like if you think they're sane and they're going to show up and they sound good, you hire them. So
I also have a feeling that if you're in the ensemble and for some reason their soloist gets sick, like if you already know it, then they might be like, hey, who knows this? Okay, there you go. I mean, I don't know. That could be something that happens.
it could be. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing like a major masterwork or something, they're probably going to bring in somebody else, like another, and that's happened before too. I can't remember who we had. She sang the first night and didn't come back the second night. I thought she sounded fine the first night, but she apparently was not okay. And they brought somebody in, and that person was not as prepared as they probably should have been. It's scary to take a gig like that. Like, how do you turn it down? Right. But if you don't know if you don't know the role or whatever. So, I never think it's bad to be taking advantage of opportunities, so who knows, like Chrissy said, I mean, isn't that how Bernstein got his start? Like he was like the backup conductor for whomever, and then that person got sick and he went the next night and conducted or something like that. I think that's how he like broke onto the national stage. I could be wrong. I think it's him. But he had like this work ethic that was like unbeatable, right? And he was prepared. So yeah, same thing if you're ever the understudy, you never know, right? Allergies are a thing. So it could be you get it.
Well, we have run out of time, sadly, but we just want to say thank you so much for having this conversation with us. We really appreciate your time and everything you put forward in this time to talk to us. And we definitely learned a lot. I definitely was taking lots of notes. I've posted notes everywhere because
awesome.
Yeah, it's great. But thank you so much. We appreciate your time. And if we have any questions, we'll go ahead. If you are cool with us emailing you,
yes,
we'll email you questions. But thank you so much. And thanks guys for hanging out and talking with us. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye everyone. Thank you.
Bye friends.
Chrissy, real fast.
Hold on just a second. I'm not going to, I was like, my mouse was on leave meeting. Hold on just a second. Let me more. Okay, wait, no, that's not how I do that. Hold on. I can do this.
You can do it. I know you